keep telling you we think we mathematicians. I'm going to give you a formula that you're quite familiar with, even though you probably never heard it. Came familiar with the formula myself through a popular book. I don't know if that's even a real thing. Like, are books even popular amongst a society of people where 17% of people above 15 read every day? Like, less than 20%. Less than 20% of people in the country read, but the majority of people in our country are plagued by narratives and stories that they replay to their own detriment in their head. How is it that we're suffering from narratives and the books are closed? Crazy thing, like, we love to run around talking about school ain't never teach us nothing. But again, like I say on the regular, everybody running around doing math that they're not equipped for, don't even know the formula. And everybody reading and writing and ain't did nothing to develop no type of real comprehension skills. It was calling people to read out loud and you sunk down in the desk, not raised your hand. But now you think you can read people's emotions. You think you can read people's true motives. You think you can read people's intentions. You think you can spend a day with somebody and tell them more about themselves than they can tell you about them after being with themselves for a lifetime. You think you can go on somebody's social media page and determine whether that's a good person that you need to spend time around or whether that's somebody that you need to decline and ignore. And I can be ridiculous. Whoever really taught us what to do with our emotions? Whoever really explained to us what our emotions were? Whoever told us what the purpose and the function of these emotions were? People were having conversations with us about enduring and suffering and being tough and withstanding and being courageous long before they ever explained to us who we were, what our functions were, and what the design of us really entailed. As a child, the only thing I really remember being told about my feelings, whether at home, school, or church, was how I wasn't supposed to feel. So by being told how I wasn't supposed to feel, all I knew how to do was identify at the times when I was doing it wrong. And that's what being aware of my emotions became. Monitoring my internal self to see when I was off kilter and when I was doing it wrong. Get mad and blow up, then somebody's telling you you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be able to control that. It's natural to feel like that, but when you feel like that, you got to keep it to yourself. You can't never let them see you sweat. You don't never let them people see that they getting to you. We learn to pretend long before we learn what real is, and that's why we have a problem with the presentation of real when it comes to life situations. There's an uncommon word that we all should become familiar with, and really somebody should have sat us down, helped us spell it in elementary, and defined it for us and told us how it applied to the inside of ourselves and how crucial it was going to be that we didn't fall into the act of continual repressing. Repression of our emotions is when we take an emotion that is put before us by a situation, circumstance, or a person that comes into our awareness, our consciously. And we, begin to pretend like we don't feel that way. We begin to hide that we do feel that way. We take it and we shove it down. Sometimes these trips are days long, weeks long. Sometimes we sit in these fears for extensive amounts of time, pretending like we're not there, not allowing anybody to support us because, again, we're wrestling with shame and guilt and wanting people to see us a certain way on the outside. So I can't lean on my support system if I have one in certain areas because the thought that I'm thinking, I think is a bad thought. And I'm not supposed to have bad thoughts. I'm not supposed to be afraid. But watch where the continual pretending and performing takes us. Because when I repress my emotions, I take my emotions and I tuck them deeper down into myself. They become a deeper part of my subconscious. I grow familiar with them. It never really hurts any less to partner with the lie, but I've partnered with the lie so many times that I've grown familiar with the effect, and I no longer am even aware that it's happening when it happens. Repressed and suppressed thoughts and feelings do not go deeper onto the inside of us and then disappear. Repressed and suppressed thoughts don't go deeper into the inside of us and become a part of our subconscious and have no effect. Suppressed and repressed thoughts go deeper into our subconscious and ultimately begin to form our core beliefs. Now, the things that I think about myself are born from emotional reactions that I had when I was entertaining illusions. I just wonder if you know you've been suffering from a story that only you have the exclusive rights to add and take away from. We meet new people, and the first thing we do is tell them what the last person that we hate to recreate again did to hurt us, and how it affected us, and how it changed us, and how we'll never be the same. And we pawn off our healing on the new individuals that we've attracted, not understanding that we didn't attract a healer or a savior or somebody in an invisible cape. We attracted more of the same, more of what's within us. We live in a world full of people who walk around feeling how they don't want to feel, but they're convinced that they're stuck feeling that way because there's a narrative, there's a story that they're telling themselves of something that happened in the past, something that might take place in the future, or something that seems to be presently going on that's keeping them in the state of negative emotion that they're in, not understanding that the state of negative emotion preceded whatever thought or idea it was that they were rehearsing. And that negative feeling actually was the foundation of that circumstance that they're not running from. We act like the victim mentality only has one mask. The victim mentality has many masks, and one of the masks includes looking at ideas that we obsess over and coming to the calculation that it's originating from somewhere else and it's out of our control. And we act as if we can do nothing but sit and cry about it and pout and take it out on others. In the context of truth, your emotions were given to you to be indicators, signals for you to become aware of when you are consciously participating in something that your higher self knows is not to your benefit or for your gain. On the physical plane, in the divided realm, where we were left to discover in the darkness, feelings and emotions became survival mechanisms used largely by all animalistic minded beings to anticipate danger and react to survive. To survive. Your feelings are survival mechanisms, but you are not intended for survival. So if your emotions and your feelings are survival mechanisms and you're on the journey or the path to thriving, what do you think your emotions are going to do for the process? Are they going to hinder you or propel you into abundance? Can you find another time in your life that you were not governed by your emotions and your feelings? Maybe it's time to connect your lack of progress with your partnership of your emotional dysfunction leading you and sitting on your throne in your place. Maybe it's time to assess if emotions are even stable enough to be utilized in making some of the decisions that we use them to make. Maybe we won't so often attack other people over our emotions if we know that they are indicators for ourselves, from ourselves, for ourselves. Maybe I won't have so many complaints about the way you don't acknowledge my feelings and the way you don't seem to respect my feelings or understand my feelings. You don't even understand your feelings half the time. You don't even do the groundwork of going in and finding the root of that foreign plant that has grown on the inside of you. And yet you want to sit down and explain it to somebody else and have them understand it for you. Anybody that partners with your dysfunction and makes it even realer to you than it was when you bought it to them is not your real friend. They're not your real supporter. Even though it appears that they're there for you, even though they seem to be relating to you in your chaos, they are doing nothing but extending your stay in a place that you don't want to be. So how friendly is that? A person is being your friend, they're being your supporter when they're telling you the truth, whether it's convenient or not, whether it's foreign or not, whether it convicts you or not. Because what it doesn't do, what the truth never does, is condemn you. The truth never writes you off. The truth never communicates a message to anyone under its ear that they are beyond repair or beyond healing or they are a lost cause. So it's always a joyous message. It's always a reason to celebrate, even if it exposes the fact that in my present performance and in my present presentation, there's a lack of awareness of truth that has caused me to partner with ignorance and express it. That's natural. Everybody does that. So I'm not going to get bent out of shape. I'm not going to let you point your finger at me for exposing my ignorance in a way that you have grown to know is facetious. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let you do that to me. Because every time you point your finger over here and point out one of my loops, if I watch you long enough, I can see and find one of yours. So we're not going to act like it's not a universal dilemma. We're not going to act like this isn't something that's common to man. We're not going to act like something is foundationally wrong with the people that we've been around and we just need to discover the right people. That's silly because we've been on that path since we were in grade school. And for years, we've been picking people up, examining them, finding out that they're just like the other group of people that we discarded, and discarding them and going to a new group. We'll call it the I need something new loop. You gotta understand, some of the most important things you'll ever tell people about yourself are not the things that come out of your mouth. It's how you move. It's what your actions say about you and your motives. For instance, if you're always partnering with people that seem to be beneficial in the moment and disconnecting when that benefit isn't as obvious as it was before, then who are you there for, them or you? The whole idea of leaving the house trying to find somebody to love you is ridiculously backwards. Because you should leave the house every day, be in love. And as you operate from love and as love, what shall you attract? Love and lovely things. Duh. The truth resonates with the real you, but the truth does not comfort the false version of you or heal the ego because it doesn't accomplish its aim. The ego is after control, and that's why issues like what, who, where, and when will always be its main concerns. And there are a ton of conversations on the ego. I talk on the ego a lot, and we talk on crucifying the ego and the destruction of the ego. And to be real, the only answer is the simple answer in how to destroy or deconstruct the ego, the illusionary self. And that's to stop giving your attention to it. Stop giving your life source to it. Because you are the one and the only one that keeps it alive. Your ego constantly tells you other people don't listen to you. Other people don't understand. Other people don't care. But your ego is always heard by you though. Your ego feeds you lies like nobody's there for you. It gives you the impression that you're experiencing loneliness. But the ego's always there for you though. And you've always been there for it. And that's the real problem. For however long you've been living, you've been giving way more attention to your ego than you have been giving the truth of yourself. And that's not because something's off with you. That's the way our society was constructed to keep you away from a truth that would set you free from all of its confines. There's no way you would get punked and bullied into some of the things that you do if you knew who you were in reality. But being that you've been given a role in this society, you operate accordingly. And that's why things were set up and put in place for you to be distracted at every turn and for you to remain in the darkness that you were born in. When you did things to intentionally stir controversy and conflict, you were normal. You weren't rebelling. You haven't seen a rebellion until you've partnered with truth and you've began to live from an awareness of love. You haven't seen power until you stop using your emotions as exterior weapons where they're so ineffective, and you use them as signals and guidance for yourself. As an intellect, I spent a ton of time trying to overcome my emotions. I wanted to defeat fear to the point that fear was no longer present in my life. But I noticed every time I would get into a space of progression, fear would be introduced again because I would disappear into the recepts of my mind and try to anticipate what was going to come before me. And being that I was in a new space, I didn't know what was going to come. So as I tried to define it, to give myself a sense of illusionary comfort, I would land in fear. And this is where statements like walk by faith, not by sight are prevalent. Not when it comes to things that you can possibly know. You're supposed to study and show yourself approved and know those things. The things that you can't know, like what's coming next, those are the things we leave to faith because we know that our Father is forever present and loving. We've been given a promise that comes instilled in all of us from the conception of our design of abundance and reigning in true power and dominance over all things that set themselves against us. So if I'm going to go out in front of myself and I'm going to anticipate something, I should anticipate things that are true, not things that are familiar from my days locked in illusions. We all had somebody tell us when we were small, idle hands are the devil's playground, and we've been pretending to be busy ever since. You work a full-time job, have kids, responsibilities, bills, and things to do, and you still have plenty of idle time to disappear into the land of fantasy in your head, because it only takes a split second. And we've been practicing it so long, for some people, it's the only thing that they can do successfully while multitasking. Most of the time when we drive, unless we're going somewhere foreign and we have to listen to the GPS or watch the phone, we're not paying any attention to the road. We're in the land of fantasy, building and tearing down as we so desire. I'm going to give you the equation, and then we'll pick up from there in the next talk. Interpretation plus identification plus repetition equals strong emotion, positive or negative. I'm feeling myself because this is the first time I've ever been a successful math student. Math was the first class I got my first C in, first class I got my first D in, and the first class I failed. But every single one of us accidentally, unconsciously became spiritual mathematicians, literally geniuses, weaving complex webs, complicated formulas into actual physical outcomes. Lock in so we can stop doing it on accident and we can learn what's really happening and begin to intentionally call forth the life that we're actually desiring.